In this video, I'm going to be talking about a treatment that I am starting today, which I hope will improve my quality of life as an ME-CFS patient and reset one part of the illness. Now, this is a treatment which has not really been talked about in the context of ME-CFS before, at least to my knowledge, but there are theoretical reasons why it should be able to help, particularly with the low blood volume, exercise intolerance, orthostatic stress, and issues in the microcirculation. So in this video, I'm going to break this treatment down and tell you about what I hope it will do for my quality of life as an ME-CFS patient. But first, my name is Patrick Usher, and I am author of the book Understanding ME-CFS and Strategies for Healing, in which I break down some of the latest, most exciting research into ME-CFS, as well as talking about treatments that I have tried in order to improve my own condition. The links for that book are down below. Alright, so what am I talking about? What is this treatment? Is it something very fancy? Does it involve a special drug or infusion? And the answer to that is no. It's actually a very simple treatment, and it's called Pressotherapy or automatic lymphatic drainage. And basically, this is a kind of you lie in these various compression garments over your legs and over your upper body. These garments are connected to a machine, which, when the machine is activated, it basically causes these garments to contract and relax, and to put pressure on the interstitial fluid to get it taken up into the lymphatic system and be processed by it. So basically the aim, standardly with this treatment, is to improve the capacity and efficiency of the lymphatic system. So get it dealing with the toxins, get it processing the fats, get it kind of just clearing the debris that may have built up in the interstitial space. And so basically it's kind of clearing the backlog of fluid that may have built up in the interstitial space, getting the lymphatic system working better, and just kind of clearing the toxins. And that's how it would be typically sold most commonly for people who want to consider this treatment. And it's quite a typical treatment that you would see in wellness spas and kind of alternative health centres, even though there is some good science behind it, and I'll talk about that as well. So you might be wondering, why are you doing this, Patrick? This it's great that you're going to go and go to get this kind of spa-like treatment, but why might it actually help ME-CFS? And I think that there are three main reasons why it could actually help out someone in our kind of situation. One is the very direct actions on the lymphatic system itself, which tends to become very stagnant in ME-CFS. The second, improving the hypovolemia or low blood volume from one angle. And thirdly, is improving some aspects of the problems with microcirculation in the illness. So I'm now going to talk about each of these three in turn. So firstly, directly impacting the lymphatic situation. In a healthy person, the lymphatic system is processing 3 litres of fluid every day. And normally it's taking that fluid up from the interstitial space, it's processing it and returning it into the active circulation, into the bloodstream. And so this kind of fluid recycling is a very important part of normal, healthy physiology. It's very important for action of the immune system, for clearing toxins, for processing fats, for energy, and a whole range of other things. But in ME-CFS, that processing of the lymphatic system actually starts to slow down, and it becomes stagnant. And this is happening for several reasons. The work of Dr. Raymond Perrin is very helpful for understanding this. There can be postural reasons, spinal reasons for the slowing down of the lymphatic fluid, but also the nervous system hypersensitivity acts on the lymphatic system to actually slow down its processing, and sometimes that autonomic stress can be so high that it actually pushes the lymphatic system into reverse. So you get a total breakdown in this very central aspect of what supports the body's health. We don't know how many litres a day the lymphatic system of ME-CFS patients, how many litres they're actually processing. But you might guess that depending on the severity, it will get worse. So maybe for some people who are more mild, maybe they're only processing 2.5 litres. For people who are more moderate, it might be 2 litres. And then for people who are more severe, it might be even 1 litre. So things might just really kind of shut down. So That's the first way in which I hope this will help. In a very basic sense, just resetting the lymphatic system and allowing my body to work on that part of the problem in a more effective way. Okay, so now we get to the second reason, and I find this one very interesting. And this is the possibility that it could help to improve the hypovolemia or low blood volume that is part of ME-CFS. Now, as you know from my previous videos, ME-CFS patients usually do not have enough blood, and the more severe they are, the less blood they have. And so we know that housebound patients, for example, tend to have 1.2 litres on average less blood than they should. And this is mainly happening because of problems in the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, the suppression of salt retention mechanisms in the body, and so on, which I have talked about elsewhere. There is a way in which a slow lymphatic system will also potentially worsen the hypovolemia. I think this is true basically for two reasons. The first is just kind of ongoing. So as I said a moment ago, the lymphatic system is supposed to process and return to the active circulation 3 litres of fluid every day. And the process of lymphatic return done successfully will support the blood volume, it will support the cardiac output and the venous return. If we have a situation where that lymphatic processing has slowed down and you're only getting 2 litres of return fluid every day rather than 3, well, then you actually have another reason, the hypovolemia. You have another reason for why there isn't enough blood in the active circulation for the vasculature and for the cardiac system and output to actually work with. So in a basic sense, there is actually a way in which this could further worsen the hypovolemia. As I say, this is not something that has been researched in the ME-CFS world, this potential link between hypovolemia and the slow lymphatic system. And so what I'm saying here is speculative. I think it makes sense, and a few months back, I wrote to Professor Wirth to ask him his perspective on this. Did he think it made sense? He wrote back saying that a delay in the lymphatic system, by whatever mechanisms, would then be a further mechanism contributing to hypovolemia. So it made sense from his perspective as well. And then Wirth went on to actually research whether the various molecules that he thinks are particularly important in the pathophysiology of ME-CFS, whether they could be exerting a negative effect on the lymphatic system. And those are molecules like bradykinin, prostaglandins and histamine. He then wrote back to me to say that actually these molecules could exert a negative effect on the lymphatic system such that they actually slow down its function. And so he went on to say it is possible that the vasoactive mediators that we suppose are released in energy-deprived skeletal muscle not only cause enhanced microvascular leakage, I'll come back to that point in a moment, but also delay lymphatic flow and fluid reuptake to the vascular system, a further mechanism that could contribute to hypovolemia and orthostatic stress. Of course, there could be other mechanisms that impede lymphatic flow as well. So, to kind of bring this part of the video together, I think that there are two ways in which pressotherapy might help. Because one is that, in general, we have this reduced lymphatic flow, and if we can kind of reset that and get it back to normal, we will help out our hypovolemia in general. The second thing is what Wirth referred to in that second quote, which is the microvascular leakage. And this is something that I want to do a video about some other time, but there's a second main reason for why the low blood volume initially develops in ME-CFS, independent of the salt hyperexcretion. And that is that when we crash, particularly, there are a range of molecules that are released in or near the blood vessels within the muscles to try and improve blood perfusion. And those molecules, the bradykinins, the prostaglandins, adenosine, are aimed at improving blood flow because the blood flow is reduced in those areas. However, the body likely creates them in such amounts in order to compensate for the poor blood flow that those molecules, which actually also can have negative effects, end up causing microvascular leaks in the blood vessels. And when you get those leaks, you actually lose some blood from the active circulation, and it goes instead into the interstitial space, where it is then slowly taken back up by the lymphatic system, go into the main bloodstream again. If we have a situation where the lymphatic system is generally slow, and we're also having an illness where these microvascular leaks are being created, and we're losing blood from the active circulation, well then it's going to take extra long to get that blood back. And so thereby we have a further reason for worsening hypovolemia, both a general one, whereby the lymphatic system is just processing the fluid too slowly, but also we're kind of adding insult to injury, because blood that's lost through the microvascular leakage is also returning to the active circulation just too slowly. So I hope that made sense. It's quite complicated to explain, but in a nutshell, we're probably having a situation of worsened hypovolemia because the lymphatic system is not returning fluid to the active circulation quickly enough. And so I hope that the pressotherapy, reinvigorating and making kind of resetting the lymphatic system, could actually help with this aspect, and thereby reducing the overall stress on the body and hopefully allowing it to more easily spiral upwards towards better health. So now we come to the third and final reason for why I hope pressotherapy might help in the context of ME-CFS, and that is improving the microcirculation. Now, there are lots of reasons why the microcirculation, that is to say blood perfusion in the extremities of the body, reduced in ME-CFS. One example is the problems with red blood cell deformability. Under healthy circumstances, when the blood reaches the kind of extremities of the body and it's going into those tiny blood vessels, the red blood cells are normally able to adapt their shape in order to actually move into those blood vessels. However, in ME-CFS, there is a problem with the capacity to deform or to change the shape of the red blood cells. And so they reach the microcirculatory zones, but they can't get in, and therefore they can't perfuse those areas, which gives us one of many reasons for the exercise intolerance. But one of the very interesting things about this treatment, and on the face of it, you wouldn't necessarily think it would be able to do this, there's actually studies showing that pressotherapy can improve the capacity of the red blood cells to change shape, and thereby improve the perfusion. And there's been several studies on this, but there's one recent one which kind of reviewed those, but also which made its own findings. And that study was called The Effect of Lower Limb Pressotherapy Treatment on Selected Rheological, that's blood flow, and Biochemical Indices of Blood in Young Healthy Women by Pressotherapy et al., perhaps, in 2024. So basically what this study did is it gave 10 treatments to a group of people. It did 4 blood tests, including a test a week after the treatment was over, and it looked at various parameters to predict the way in which the blood was flowing before and after the treatment. And so now, just to read one of the most important conclusions from the paper before we kind of consider it in a little more detail, they found that the application of a series of 10 lower limb pressotherapy treatments had a beneficial effect on a decrease in blood viscosity, that's the kind of thickness of the blood, the aggregation index, which is the clumping of the blood, so again, if that goes down, that's better, and an increase in the elongation index at shear stress levels from 0.3 Pa to 8.23 Pa in young healthy women. And the shear stress is basically the kind of force at which blood perfuses into the blood vessels. So again, the increase there shows that the blood was kind of getting in better. And so straight away we see that there's actually something about this mechanical contraction and relaxation that's done in the pressotherapy, which actually somehow changes the nature of the blood flow. So here's another quote from the study. An important factor influencing blood viscosity is the deformability of red blood cells. So this is what we were talking about a moment ago. At high shear forces, the deformability values of erythrocytes, that's red blood cells, are higher, which causes blood viscosity to decrease, which is associated with better flow in the microcirculation. So this basically indicates that pressotherapy could be able to enact the opposite of the red blood cell deformability problems that we see in ME-CFS. In other words, it actually improves the capacity of the red blood cells to get into the microcirculation. Similarly, here's another interesting quote. Intermittent pneumatic compression, which is pressotherapy, also significantly affects the fibrinolytic activity of the vessel walls, which is of great importance in maintaining the appropriate fluidity of the blood. Fibrinolytic basically means the capacity of the blood to break down clots. And of course that's relevant for ME-CFS because we have the microclots. And so again, here we have evidence that pressotherapy can improve the capacity of the blood to actually break down the clots that might be there. So basically, when we consider this third aspect, it seems that pressotherapy could actually be helpful for combating some aspects of the perfusion disturbances that occur in ME-CFS. And most likely it's simply some way in which the blood is responding to literally the pressure of the contractions. Of course, these studies were not done in ME-CFS patients, but typically I think in healthier individuals. So what we don't know is whether the circulatory system of the ME-CFS patient will respond similarly to what we see in these studies, or whether there's something about what's kind of driving these problems in the first place, which would make the blood of ME-CFS patients basically say, no, sorry, I'm not going to respond. So we don't know that. But nevertheless, in principle, when we look at these studies, it seems feasible that pressotherapy could actually help out with some aspects of the microcirculation problems in the illness. Okay, so that was all quite complicated, especially for me this morning to try and explain, but I hope nevertheless it came across relatively clearly. But basically, this quite simple treatment could play a role for sure in improving lymphatic health, and also could help out with one aspect, admittedly a quite downstream aspect, but nevertheless important, of the low blood volume, which could then help to reduce the overall stress on the body and improve its orthostatic stress and exercise capacity, and finally also to improve potentially the microcirculation. And so taken together, although I don't expect any magic bullet from a treatment like this, I do think that it has the potential to improve quality of life and maybe to be one component amongst many strategies in helping an ME-CFS patient to kind of improve their overall functionality, which of course only then gives a greater likelihood of actually being able to move towards much better quality of life or even recovery. I think of ME-CFS as being like a ship that is weighed down with many anchors, and so if we can just find various treatments to help out with some of those anchors, hopefully the ship will be strong enough to remove the remaining anchors itself and set sail for a beautiful new future. So that's it for this video. My session actually starts in 40 minutes, so I have to go now. But what I'm going to do is I will do a video again once I've done treatments for about a month, which is my aim. I'm just thinking of doing somewhere between 10 and 20 treatments, and then I will update you to see has it actually helped to improve my quality of life at all, or did it not really have any effect. Please leave your thoughts and comments on pressotherapy down below. Have you tried it? Have you tried just manual lymphatic drainage massage? Did that help with your symptoms? Let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next video.